Maloney, Ranking Member Comer, and members of the committee. Thank you for the opportunity to discuss this critical issue. In the last year, we have seen a number of techniques employed to undermine the will of the voters. The flagrant violence of January 6th, the behind-the-scenes phone calls to state and local officials, an alleged secret memo advocating for a coup. None of these techniques succeeded in overturning the 2020 election, but willfully ignorant sham partisan reviews are serving up innuendo and baseless suspicion, ready for deployment by super spreaders of lies. The impact of these lies is twofold: attacks on election officials and their families now, and the fostering of systematic efforts at election sabotage in the future. I hope to make 3 points in my testimony. First, after more than 9 months and millions of dollars spent, the sham partisan review in Arizona has given us the same insinuations that purveyors of voter fraud myths have been pushing and that real election experts have been debunking for years. And it's no surprise, the contractors that the Arizona Senate chose to conduct this charade were biased from the start. Second, we cannot dismiss these foolish exploits out of hand because they are spreading and providing seed material that prominent actors leverage in their disinformation campaigns to keep the big lie alive. Third, all of society must do its part to protect our democracy. Congress can help by providing resources to help election officials defend against these attacks, and by passing legislation to protect election officials, workers, and voters. The Arizona Senate's partisan review was conceived and executed by people who were the subject of pressure from former President Trump and his supporters to propagate fraud claims. From a state Senate meeting with Giuliani, to a call from Trump to Senate President Fan, to voicemails left with a Maricopa County supervisor who stood firm and did not call back, the pressure campaign did not let up. It is in this context that instead of choosing objective, transparent, and competent contractors, the Senate chose cyber ninjas. Doug Logan, the CEO of Cyber Ninjas, has authored and apparently still stands by a memo to legislators chock full of debunked Stop the Steal conspiracy theories, including a viral claim against a former Dominion employee who had to go into hiding after a flood of harassment and threats. In addition to being biased, the cyber ninjas have resisted transparency about their procedures and for the press at every turn. There's also very little transparency about who is funding the review. What little information has been disclosed is troubling. Finally, the cyber ninjas were incompetent to perform any election review. The firm's top 3 findings are textbook examples of how purveyors of voter fraud misunderstand data. First, they ignored the birthday problem, a basic concept in probability. They looked for Arizona voters who shared a first, middle, and last name and birth year with another voter, and they found about 10,000 such matches. They then gave this finding the alarming title, Voters That Potentially Voted in Multiple Counties. But within groups of people who have a common name, such as Robert Smith, it is expected that some of them will share a birthday. And it is even more common for people to share a birth year, which is all the cyber ninjas found. In another example of their willingness to cast aspersions on their fellow citizens, they labeled one finding critical, supposedly impacting over 23,000 ballots. This is the number of people who cyber ninjas found through matching voter check-in files to a commercial address verification list. But temporary moves do not change a voter's eligibility to vote from their permanent residence. This isn't an obscure election law fact. It appeared in mainstream news stories before November, since many voters had questions about this during the pandemic. And Cyber Ninjas is not the only biased contractor that was chosen. Shiva Ayudurai was contracted to look at ballot envelope images. He has a history of conflating ballot images and ballots to allege election fraud in his home state of Massachusetts. And he did this again with envelope images and ballots in Arizona. These errors and misleading innuendo would be sad if they weren't so dangerous. Most election officials do not have the staff and resources to run year-round fact-check operations. Congress should assist with these resources. Many of the provisions in the Freedom to Vote Act would also be helpful, such as one providing for voters to bring a lawsuit if their right to vote has been infringed in a federal election. This provision would provide a remedy in the worst-case scenario where an official gives in to pressure to overturn an outcome. Thank you for the opportunity to testify today. I look forward to answering your questions.